Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of OK Zoomer. As always, I'm your host, Aaron Lichtig, Xometry guy and former Jeopardy champion. And I'm here today with Alex Kingsbury, who is the Additive Manufacturing Industry Fellow and Engagement Lead at RMIT University in Australia. Alex, welcome. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me, Aaron, Mr. Jeopardy champion.
I know we had a great conversation before we started here about Jeopardy, and Alex is from Australia, and Jeopardy is not a cultural phenomenon or a touch point so much in Australia. So I was kind of explaining what Jeopardy was like and showing a few old clips of the show. What did you think?
Which I quite enjoyed. It was really good. Thank you very much. And the music, I have to say, I know that music, so you know, there must be something that's filtered down somehow, you know, in some way. I'm sure it was on our TVs at some point. I just not a game show person, I guess.
You're not ready to be a Jeopardy contestant?
No.
So you're not ready for the trivia portion of OK Zoomer?
No, but the question that you played, I got right, didn't I? So maybe nice. You should consider
it. Yeah, she did get Final Jeopardy right, or at least the one from my game. Cool. So tell us about your daily work at RMIT and what keeps you busy there every day and week.
Yeah, sure. So I'm an industry fellow at RMIT University. Industry fellow is a little bit of a funny position. I think most people know fellows in the sense of having them in private companies, whereas I'm a fellow in a university. And really what it means is that I have an academic position, but it's very industry based. And the idea is to bring industry and academia together. It's trying to cross that divide. And that's really where I've done a lot of my work in the past, specifically in additive, has been about getting research into industry and also, you know, the other way around. So what are industry problems that we need to go and solve? So that's at a high level what the job is about. And as it filters down to the day-to-day, it really is about being able to help inform decisions around where we go and what we do. We just did a really great renewing of our strategy late last year, which was excellent. And being able to forecast trends, I guess as researchers, it's really important that we're ahead of the trends and seeing where things are going and ensuring really that we're doing the research now that we'll see its way into industry in the future. So there is a bit of forecasting around being able to anticipate problems at a very high level, but also being able to meet, you know, directly with industry in the here and now and be able to help them solve their issues, you know, now. So RMIT is actually a great, I mean, I've walked into a plum role as far as I'm concerned, because RMIT actually already has really, really great industry engagement. It's well known for its, you know, really great levels of industry partnerships. So I've got a really great platform, I suppose, to springboard off, and have been able to bring more of my, I guess, contacts and knowledge into the university. It's not only great for research too, I might add, but it's also really great for the students. So being able to have access to people within the university that are from industry is helpful. So I also do supervise some final year projects and some masters, you know, theses as well. And they've always got some sort of industry sponsorship. So it's always working with a company to solve some sort of a problem, and it gives the students, you know, direct access to a company that they wouldn't have otherwise known. It's also for the company itself. It's a great way to throw some willing students on an issue that they just don't have the bandwidth or the time to support or to sort out themselves. And it's a great recruitment avenue for them because they get, you know, really 7-8 months of testing out students before they might decide to then go and hire them. So that's my job. I also do quite a bit on the comms side, which as an engineer with no marketing or comms background whatsoever, has been fun, but it's something actually that I think I just naturally enjoy. So I'm always really happy to do it. I just recently renewed our whole website and online presence. I've been working on our social media. That sort of stuff for me is it's certainly not, you know, challenging, but it is quite fun. So I enjoy engaging with people and just making sure actually that, you know, we're getting our work and our stories out there. This is one of the things I think that when I joined RMIT, I actually was very heavily engaged with RMIT before I joined already. So I knew a lot about what they were doing, and I knew a lot about their capability before I joined. But then when I joined, I really had a proper appreciation of the depth of expertise at the university and the, you know, amazing projects that they're doing. And so one of the things, and this is typically where researchers tend to fall down, is they don't get enough of their stuff out there. You know, they don't communicate enough of their amazing work, and so that has fallen to me. But like I said, it's been a happy thing to be able to work on, because I think that, yeah, being able to push out some of those great stories, it's like I came off a pretty low baseline, and anything I added from there was just all value add. So yeah.
So in addition to being a fellow and an engagement lead, you're also a student.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. So, when we were having a chat about me potentially coming to RMIT, and I should add, by the way, I did my undergraduate at RMIT. So I've been at the uni, I guess, on and off in some way or another for quite a long time. And actually, prior to joining as an employee, I was on their industry advisory committee as well. So, when we were having a chat about that, I've worked in research or research related. Like I said, I've always been between research and the commercial worlds. And I don't have a PhD. So I went and did my undergrad. And in Australia, it's probably slightly different to the US and Europe. You don't tend to do a master's. It tends to be a larger undergrad. And most engineers would just do their undergrad and then get into the workforce, which is what I did. But yeah, I don't have a PhD, and it's one of those things that it's never been a showstopper, but it has been just a slightly limiting factor, I think. If you want to play in the research space, not having a PhD is probably not the wisest idea, really. So that's sort of, I guess, a strategic reason for going and doing it. But from a I guess a personal goals and motivation point of view, a PhD was just something that was on my bucket list. Really, it was one of the things that I really wanted to go and complete at some point. And I'd been sort of trying to make efforts to go and do a PhD in years gone past, when I was working in the research sector, and it just got it was happy reasons for why I didn't go and do it, but it was, you know, having a job promotion that was just going to take up all my time, and I wasn't going to be able to, you know, devote some proper time to study. It was, you know, having a baby, which, you know, also takes up a lot of time. So it just seemed like coming to RMIT, I've got, you know, ready baked supervisors, and, you know, a team already around me. So taking on a PhD to that is sort of made sense. It made a lot of sense, and they've been really, you know, very, very supportive. And initially I was going to do it part-time, but I was strongly encouraged, and I understand why, but I was strongly encouraged to do it full-time. So I'm actually a full-time PhD student and a part-time employee of the university. So, you know, I sort of do wish that we had 10 days in a week, but we don't. And somehow I think I make it work. I have a lot of energy, so that helps.
That's a very full plate. Now, how did you first get interested in additive manufacturing?
So I did chemical engineering as my undergrad, and I can't say that manufacturing really was on my radar, really. Mm-hmm. And I got out of uni and worked in engineering consulting industry, and I worked on a lot of sort of mining and oil and gas projects, and I was in the resources industry. And I enjoyed that work, but I have to say, being a consultant, you're quite office bound, and it's a lot of pushing paper, I guess. And I was quite keen after a couple of years to go back into some sort of go into some sort of site-based job. And I had a look around at the job market, and there just didn't seem to be anything that really appealed to me, because I wanted to be in a role where I was quite challenged. And it's one good thing actually about consulting is you do work on a lot of really challenging projects. So, as a company generally tends to throw their more challenging, meatier stuff at consultants. Partially to de-risk the project as well. So you get to work on some quite good stuff, whereas the site roles I was looking at didn't seem to be so sort of interesting. And anyway, this job popped up working for CSIRO, and they were asking for a chemical engineer, which is what I was, or am. And CSIRO stands for Commonwealth Scientific Industrial Research Organisation. So if you're going to think about an equivalent, say in the US, it would be like your national labs, but under one whole umbrella, or like a Fraunhofer in Europe, right? So it's that kind of research organization, but quite focused on industrial research. And anyway, that just immediately appealed to me, because it was an opportunity to be on a site, but it was an opportunity to be working on research projects, new technologies. And specifically my role was I'd done a lot in costing analysis and scale up design. So taking something from small scale into large scale, which as a chemical engineer is really bread and butter. It's process flow diagrams, but from that flows in material streams, energy balances, and then costing. And so I developed a bit of a skill in this costing analysis and scale up design. And that is why CSIRO was interested in me and offered me the job. Now, this is a very long way of saying, how do I get involved in additive? Well, when I joined CSIRO, they were doing a lot of projects in titanium metals. And that was really around the value stream in Australia, being that we have a lot of titanium ore, but virtually no titanium metal industry in Australia. So we're shipping this stuff off, for cents per kilogram. We're buying it back, as a refined product for hundreds of dollars per kilogram. And there was an effort to recapture as part of that value chain in titanium metal powders. And we were doing a lot of projects at CSIRO around powder development. So thinking of different ways in which we can make titanium powders, different ways of processing titanium powders. And around that time, so this is in 2011, that I joined. And around that time, we were already working in some powder consolidation techniques, cold spray, hot rolling of powders, wire forming of powders, and additive manufacturing. Metal additive manufacturing was really just starting to take off and make waves around the globe. And fortunately for me at that time, John Barnes had joined CSIRO. So he joined about 2 months before me and was plugged into what was going on in the US, and really had the vision and foresight to say, I think we really need to move into metal additive manufacturing. So that's when everything shifted around CSIRO, and we got an Arcam A1 machine, and it grew a lot from there, suffice to say.
So yeah, you've been in this industry for quite a while.
Yeah, it's amazing how time sort of sneaks up on you.
Yeah, for sure. So you've seen kind of some of the beginnings of the industry. What excites you most about where the industry is headed?
So I suppose just going back to that costing background that I came into CSIRO with, and really when I started working in additive, it was all around the cost and the feasibility of the process, and what are the business cases that we can make for this technology? Where does it work best? What are the markets that we want to be able to aim for? And also being just realistic around, is there a better way to make this? because, additive doesn't have to be the solution for everything. And I actually think, it's pretty harmful to walk in with that sort of attitude. So, and again, also then open up design for additive as well, and see what does that do then to the cost model? What does that do then to, your other alternatives of fabrication techniques? So I've always approached this from a quite commercial perspective, and being able to make a business case out of the technology, and getting deep into the costing from the very get-go really opened my eyes as to how expensive it was. And I mean, we all know that it's very expensive. The technology, to buy the machines, they're expensive. And they're not as productive as most manufacturing machines that we're used to. The materials, they're expensive on the per kilogram basis. The post-processing is horribly expensive. So what excites me is a lot of these lower cost technologies that are coming into the market and have been coming in for the last couple of years. And this has been, really, I think you'll notice a lot of the conversation is around, we noticed that this is quite an expensive technology, and I'm talking about, powder bed processes. And look, powder bed's awesome. I love it. I mean, I loved working with the Arcam machine and having experience of that. But as far as what excites me about the future goes, it's those technologies that are a lower cost and offer a different route, but also play into different markets, and have been able to open up applications in new spaces because of that lower price point. So specifically, cold spray that I mentioned before, which according to the standards is not technically an additive technique, but that's okay. We'll graciously kind of informally welcome them to the family. But cold spray is it is very exciting. You can be really flexible with your feedstock. You can go to very low cost options. It's actually a very low cost processing route as well. Wire arc additive manufacturing as well is pretty exciting because, again, the feedstock is, you can be very flexible with that source of feedstock. All the wires that are available are commercially and readily available. So supply chains has also been one of those things that I've focused on quite a lot, just, because I'd had that powders focus and looking at titanium metal powder market, looking at, what are the different supply chains, and then how does that affect the cost? And so, welding wires, very readily available, very accessible, very low supply chain risk. We also have, wealth of knowledge that we have in welding that, you can bring into wire arc additive manufacturing. Binder jet technologies, which in my opinion, I've been I guess, exposed and working with binder jet companies from about 2016, I think 15, 16, and getting to know what binder jet does, the types of markets it can play into, what it then enables. That to me is very exciting, and it's been definitely very exciting to see lots of newer technologies come into the market that are variations thereof.
Awesome. And you mentioned standards and cold spray and how that fits together. You're also on the Additive Manufacturing Standards Committee for Australia. Can you tell the viewers about that work?
Yeah, okay. So there's so ISO is the International Standards Organization, and every country has its own standards organization that then feeds into ISO. So in the additive world, we have a lot of standards developed by ASTM, and really ASTM is pretty far down the track with publishing some really useful standards. But it's funny because when I joined the additive, so we didn't actually have an additive group in standards for many years, and this was something that I noticed quite early on. And then when I sort of thought about it, I thought, well, do we need one? We always just use the other published standards that are out there. But I did, I got approached by someone about it, and then sort of came around and said, okay, if we form a standards committee, then that means that we can then start to petition for and advocate for what we would like to see in standards development. So it's not so much about Australia having standards for additive, because we just use the standards that everyone else uses. It's an international marketplace, so of course we're going to do that. We don't need to have specific Australian standards, unlike in other industries where you definitely absolutely do. But this was more about having a seat at the table, really. Being able to get in and have Australian people, Australian AM people on those joint working committees and informing future standards development. So we decided to set up this standards committee, and it's been interesting. We've published a couple of standards, so standards work can be a little bit disinteresting at times, because it is a lot of paperwork and bureaucracy around taking international standards and then republishing them as Australian standards. That's the less interesting part of it. And thankfully, as a committee member, you don't actually have to get too involved in that. But where it does get interesting is being able to have that seat at the table, being on joint working committees to develop new standards and being able to inform the development of new standards. And so I mentioned cold spray before. Now, cold spray is something that, it was developed as a surface coating technology. But really, there's been so much work now that's been done into taking it from surface coating into additive technology, being able to create preformed products, freeform, and that from scratch in a three-dimensional shape. This isn't about surface coating anymore. This is about being able to create whole products. So it's definitely additive driven, and there's a lot of activity in Australia around cold spray. And so that's one of the things that we have been just trying to work on quietly in the background, is having cold spray as a recognized additive technology. In one way, what difference does it really make? But in another way, it does. So, if you feel like the sort of unwanted adopted child of the family, then, you're never perhaps going to be taken as seriously as you should be. Whereas, when it's made official, it then feeds right into everything from education curriculum, into training courses, into knowledge and information dissemination as well. So it does help to support that technology to grow and develop as an additive technology.
Excellent. Well, Alex, thank you so much for joining us today on OKZoomer as our first guest from Australia.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right, everybody, we will be back with another episode of OKZoomer next week. Thank you for watching, and stay healthy.